Hello and welcome back to another Arsenal Unfiltered. It is 7 o'clock on Sunday evening and we have just finished, I have just finished watching Arsenal 2, Liverpool 2, and I'm coming to you with a semi-instant reaction. I've taken a moment to try and calm down, but a semi-instant reaction after our draw with title rivals Liverpool. What a game. Very stressful game to watch. As an Arsenal fan, there was a lot going on. A lot of changes. The momentum shifted backwards and forwards a lot during that game, and it was intense. There was moments of quality and then moments of physical battles, and there's a lot to dissect. So let's get into it. And as ever with our review shows, there's only one place to start, and that is the Arsenal first 11. And I think most Arsenal fans at least, perhaps not Liverpool fans, but most Arsenal fans would have been delighted to see this lineup, especially the inclusion of Bukayo Saka and Jurrien Timber. Bukayo Saka definitely more than Jurrien Timber, but great to have them both. And I think that really changed my feeling about the game. I think when I saw the lineup, I thought, okay, we've got a chance here, because when we lost Calafiori in the last game, I thought, my word, who are we putting up against Mo Salah? And as well, I watched Liverpool, I think, against Chelsea, and I thought Andy Robertson was looking weak, and I thought that's probably the side we can get them. And those two positions, before the lineup came out, we thought we didn't have Timber, we didn't have Calafiori, and we didn't have Saka. And they're the two positions where we really needed someone to stop Liverpool's main threat, and we really needed to take advantage of their main vulnerability. So having those two players was vital. I think we saw that play out in the game, to be honest, and obviously when Timber left, we saw the gap he left with his big Gabby, his pal, which we will come on to later. I think, however, the thing in the lineup that we were all looking at, and Sky Sports were actually looking at it as well on their kind of their stream, their live feed, was who is lining up in defence. Is it going to be White at right back, then Rice, Gabby and Timber, or was it going to be Partey at right back, White, Gabby, Timber? Obviously, we've watched the game now. We know Thomas Partey played at right back and had a stonking game. Really, really positive from his point of view, and we'll come on to the form that he is currently in towards the end of this podcast. But yeah, the lineup was good, and within 10 minutes we had our first goal. What a goal it was. Ben White's ball forward, and Bukayo Saka does a Bukayo Saka thing at that point. He just was fantastic. So much pace to get round Robertson, and the cutback, the nutmeg, I should say, on Andy Robertson. I think at that point where Robertson starts to go sprawling, you're thinking, this is a chance. This is a big chance here now. Now that he's done him, there is an alternative world where that ball hits Andy Robertson's legs, goes out for a corner, and the game is completely different. There's also a world where Andy Robertson just screens the ball and Bukayo Saka never gets round him. But Bukayo Saka is far strong, tenacious, and brilliant with the ball. And the nutmeg gives him an opportunity, gives him a platform to provide a classic Bukayo Saka finish, just lifting it into the roof of the net, near post, above the goalkeeper. We've seen him do that a number of times. I'm so glad he's not a one-dimensional winger, right? So many wingers have to shape up and try and steer it in that far post. And actually, that near post kind of powerful lift is so difficult for goalkeepers because they're trying to set themselves in a position where they can spring, usually to the right, because that's where they're thinking the ball's going to go. And if wingers have that finish, I mean, that's probably a criticism that we could level at Gabriel Martinelli, right? We've said it a number of times. The Bournemouth game's a good example. He telegraphs his finishes a little bit. Bukayo Saka does not do that. It's a great finish. It's so powerful. And Kelleher is a very, very good goalkeeper. Don't pretend that just because Alisson isn't there, that Kelleher is not a Premier League level goalkeeper. He is very good, but he had no chance. He had no chance against Bukayo Saka. And what a great start to the game that was. I mean, I think just looking from the outside, the atmosphere was probably quite tense. It's tough to get a gauge when you're watching on TV, but it felt to me quite tense during the game. Really quite a worried crowd. And to get a goal within the first 10 minutes is massive. Really helps the crowd feel better, helps the players feel better, obviously. They're 1-0 up. And, really sets the tone of the game. And I thought, as a general comment over the whole first half, we were brilliant going forward. I'll come on to him when we discuss the players who've had a really good game, but I thought Leandro Trossard was a real threat. He made some fantastic kind of cross-field balls. There was one particularly with the outside of his boot that was really impressive, and he was moving the ball at pace. And I've been critical of him over the last couple of games. I don't think he showed his best self earlier in the week, but today I thought he was really good. And we were giving Liverpool nothing. And I don't think we really gave them anything for the whole first half, apart from the corner. And unfortunately, set pieces defined the rest of this half of football, but unfortunately this one was not our finest, and it's the second time in two Premier League games, that we've been outdone by a near post corner. And I don't know. Let me know what you think. Is that becoming a worry? Is that becoming a bit of a problem for Arsenal? We are renowned as the team that are so good at set pieces. We score so many of them, and for a long time we conceded so few. But there's a couple of vulnerabilities starting to show. A little pattern there with the near post corners. Bournemouth, a very similar one actually, got in front of the first man, flicked it into the chaos area basically, and capitalised. And it's the same thing here in the Liverpool game, where I think it's Diaz gets in front of Kai Havertz at the front post and flicks it into an area where really anything can happen. Anything can happen. That can fall to Raya, that can hit a defender, it can hit Van Dijk and go in, it can hit Van Dijk and go out. But he capitalises on it, he heads it home, and I think you've got to give Liverpool their dues for a well-worked set piece that they've clearly worked on. But at the same time, I think there's a real question mark about Kai Havertz in that moment, and I'm hesitant to criticise him too much, because he has done so much running for Arsenal recently and done so much work and been brilliant in 2024. Kai Havertz as a striker in 2024 has been one of our most influential players, and especially tactically, not just his output, but tactically he has been so important to us. But I think you maybe started to see some of that tiredness, right? If you are tired, if you have done a lot of running and played a lot of games without much backup, and he's not come off in many games either, so he really hasn't had any rest, to be honest, and he's done a lot of running when we've been down to 10 men. If you're tired, it's very easy to switch off. Even in a Premier League game, a title challenger game between two rivals, a split second and Diaz is ahead of him, he could do better, I guess is my point. I don't want to go in on him too hard. I don't think the full blame of the goal falls solely to him. If you look at where Thomas Partey's standing when Virgil van Dijk heads that ball in, he really should be in a better spot for me. He should be competing with Van Dijk for it, and Van Dijk sort of gets in front of him and it's a bit easy for him. It's a bit of a tap in. So, that's a shame, because I think Partey had a very good game apart from that moment. But of course we responded, and what a way to respond. Mikel Merino's first goal for the Arsenal. And I think that is a little bit, for the first time, we saw in Mikel Merino a little bit of what we all thought he was being brought for, because I think he was good on the ball today, industrious down that kind of left 8 position, but he adds another man in that kind of set piece 4-5 players who we could swing a ball at. We can put a number of players in a line and you compare them against any defence, any team in the Premier League, and they've got a good chance of beating them aerially. He adds to that. He is a box crasher, a dual monster, and the guy did very well to get on the end of that, to stay on side. He's picked that up quite quickly, that lovely move where we start with 4 players offside. The hand goes up from the deliverer and the free kick taker, I should say, and they all kind of shuffle 1 or 2 men forward, slot back into an onside position. They're in front of their men, and then they go It's a fantastic routine, and it works so often, and it worked really well today. Mikel Merino did really well to fit into that, having not been with the club that long. He's picked that up quite quickly. But we have to talk about Declan Rice's delivery. They made a big deal out of it on Sky Sports, and quite rightly so. And it was a great time as well to produce that moment of quality. We've been dying for moments of quality, I think, this season at times. And when we've missed Martin Odegaard, when we've missed Bukayo Saka, we've all thought we need someone to bring us a moment of quality. Declan Rice did that in that moment. He really, really did. Not just the pace and the curve of the ball, but it's not particularly high. So it doesn't create something that's kind of dropping in. If a ball is dropping in, it's much harder for an attacker to kind of get the direction on it, because they kind of have to judge the kind of vertical axis as it comes in. For a defender, that's meat and gravy, because they don't really need to worry about the height that they send it out at. So they can just reverse the ball, they can reverse the trajectory. Whereas if a ball is dropping for an attacker, very difficult for them to control. Actually, it's coming down, I need to send it up a little bit, or make sure it, carries on going down, but not too much. And I'm not just hitting a glancing header, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That ball stays kind of low, and it's not so high. And what it allows Merino to do is just plant his face at it. That's all he had to do. It's at the right level for him to score, which is great. It's great to see that quality from Rice. And I thought he had a good game as well. Stepped up a little bit more today. As Arsenal fans, I feel like a lot of us have been calling for Rice to be a little bit more influential in the absence of Martin Odegaard, and I think he was very industrious today. We all want to see that in Declan Rice. And then, we go in at 2-1. I think every Arsenal fan would be very happy with that. Like I mentioned before, we didn't really give Liverpool anything apart from their set piece. So considering the context which we came into the game in, I think we all would have taken that, right? We all would have taken that. And then the second half is a very, very different story. And where we were, I think, very good in the first half in Liverpool's side of the pitch, we really moved the ball quickly and we were incisive on the counter-attack. Second half of the game changed quite a lot. And obviously, Gabriel goes off at 60 minutes. I think Liverpool, to be fair to them, they were starting to get a little bit more of a foothold in the game, but they didn't come out at the pace I was expecting them to come out at. I was expecting a real response, and I think they just sort of came to our level, and it was a bit more of an even contest for the first 15 minutes of that second half. Bit more of an even contest, and they were in it a bit more, but I wasn't worrying at that stage. Gabby is obviously involved in a collision with Darwin Núñez. It looks like a kind of bang on the knee. To me, it didn't look anywhere near as serious as Calafiori's, which is obviously a good thing. We've not heard too much on Calafiori, but there is, we're all expecting he'll be out for a little while at least. This looked more like a bang on the knee, very painful, maybe swelled up a little bit, but hopefully not something that keeps him out for a long time. But what it did do is take him off at 60 minutes. He tried to play on, fair play to him, and I think that's worth doing unless it is a really, really big injury and it's obvious that he can't carry on. It seemed like he had a knock, a collision, worth trying in my book, but ultimately he had to come off at 60 minutes. Kivior came on, and this is not a criticism of Kivior, but that substitution changed the game quite a lot for me. And I'll tell you why. The way we control teams and the way we work teams when we're off the ball and the opposition team is on the ball is predicated on the very, very aggressive centre-backs that we have. Multiple times in every Arsenal game, you can see, we all see it, Gabriel or Saliba running a man basically back into his own half, back towards the goal. A ball will come into a winger or a striker, and they are just unable to turn around. And I think Ben White was able to do it a little bit, although he wasn't as aggressive as Gabriel is. But the reason for that is because we pack them in, we keep them high at the pitch, and we try and turn the ball over high. If we can't do that, we can't win the ball, the 9 times out of 10, the opposition go long, and we back ourselves with our pace, Gabriel's pace, Saliba's pace, Ben White's pace as well, to get back and deal with it in a one-on-one physical duel. that's what we do. That's how we defend. We keep danger away from our third, and that is how we control teams. Now, sometimes we have to drop into blocks, but ultimately, if we lose the ball, we try and move up. Without Gabby there, that became very difficult very quickly because Kivior doesn't have that pace. In fact, Kivior is probably, just thinking about it now, he's probably one of our slowest defenders. He's a good defender, he's a good player, he's a good squad player, but you don't want to see him in this game. You really don't want to see him. And you just think, God, if we had Tomiyasu, if we had Calafiori, they come on, perhaps we do carry on playing high and not allowing that space. But as soon as Gabby came off, I felt there was a feeling from Arteta that he had to drop the team. And I'm not saying that was right or wrong. In the Sky Sports coverage after the game, they sort of covered Arsenal's mentality and a negative mentality about dropping deep when they're winning games. It's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. What happened was, we know that Liverpool's threat is Darwin Núñez, Mo Salah, pacey players in behind, and we back players like William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes to go one-on-one with those guys. We can't back Jakub Kiwior to do that. And on top of that, at 75 minutes, we lose Jurrien Timber. So, and again, no offence to Lewis Skelly. I thought he did great when he came on. But we also can't back Lewis Skelly to do that. He's 18, sorry. That's not fair. So, it's not negative mentality. It's about dealing with the threat that is posed to you with the tools that you have. Now, when we have Gabriel Magalhaes, we're fine. We can do that. You'd back Gabriel against Mo Salah. You'd back him against Darwin Núñez because he is a top defender. With Kiwior on, we had to drop a bit, and it gave Liverpool that space in the middle third of the pitch. We weren't able to compress them as much, and they gained more and more control. And Sky Sports flashed up a lot of stats during the game as Liverpool's possession started to grow, and you could feel it was changing. Now, all that said, I don't think they created tons because we're great in a low block. We are really good, and Rice and Marino did a really good job of shielding that back four, but it was one moment. And let's give Liverpool their dues. I don't think they created much in this game. We didn't create tons, but I don't think they created much in terms of high quality chances. I should have checked the XG, actually. I'll do that after this pod. But that ball from Trent over the top is exactly what I'm talking about. If Gabriel's there, does he clean that up? Does he show Darwin into a better place? How does he deal with that? As opposed to, you could see Lewis Skelly and Kiwior were a little bit lost at sea. Where should we be? Where should we be standing? Lewis Skelly had pushed up a little bit already. And yeah, it's great. It's a great goal. You've got to give it to them. As much as you can look at Lewis Skelly being a bit high and not dropping fast enough, and you can look at Kiwior not sensing the danger and maybe dropping a little further to notice that Kiwior is so high up the pitch. You can criticise that, but it's just a fantastic ball from Trent Alexander-Arnold. Just moments after Gary Neville had slagged off his passing in the game, he produces the pass of the match. And obviously from there, it's a good ball from Darwin Núñez. And when Mo Salah's there, Mo Salah's in that position. It doesn't matter how good David Raya's been this year. He scores that goal. That's a banker for Liverpool. And it's 2-2 at that point. The last talking point was our disallowed goal, I'm going to call it. Strange moment. So Curtis Jones kind of scoops the ball up in the air on the edge of the penalty area, and it's contested, and it ends up with Kiwior coming straight in. I can't remember the Liverpool player's name, and going right over the top of him to win the header. At that point, Anthony Taylor doesn't blow, which is strange, but he looks like he wants to give a foul. He waits for Kai Havertz to win his header, the second ball, which he does, and it goes over towards the goal. And at that point, he blows. And then, obviously, the ball is contested again. It hits the bar, and Gabriel Jesus taps it home. Now, I'm not saying this should be a goal. I think Kiwior did go in with a lot of enthusiasm, shall we say, and kind of smoked the player that was in that 50-50 with him. And as much as it frustrates me, I would rather 50-50s had just let played. But as much as it frustrates me, that is what they are doing. They're calling a lot of 50-50s and they're giving it one way or the other. Do I think Anthony Taylor was particularly consistent in this game? I'm not sure. Probably would need to watch it back. I was frustrated with a number of his calls, but I'm sure Liverpool fans would have been the exact same way. So it's difficult to tell whether he was consistent from kind of my own viewpoint without watching it back. But for me, I don't understand why he delays it. It makes no sense. It got the stadium were ready to celebrate because you couldn't hear in that moment. It was a very faint whistle because obviously the noise in the crowd got up as the ball went through. It's a very, very strange moment that he leaves. I'm not sat here bitter about it. I think a 2-2 result was pretty fair. Liverpool, they played well enough to get a point. I think given our context and all the injuries, then, it probably played out in a way that we a point was what we deserved. We didn't add too much attacking threat in the second half. And that killed us, obviously not being able to turn the ball over high without Gabby made a big difference there. So, yeah, I think a fair result, but a strange refereeing moment towards the end. And, yeah, overall, I mean, the two players that impressed me the most today was Thomas Partey and Leandro Trossard. And we've mentioned them both already in this podcast. Thomas Partey, this is the best form he has been in at Arsenal, full stop, I think. Obviously, when we first got him, it felt like we could not play without him. And then we've had 2 years of he's injured, he's never available. When he comes in, he's getting run over. He doesn't have that physicality anymore. Right now, he feels like the player we originally brought. He's got that level of physicality back. He is winning tackles, winning duels. And on top of that, he's still got his eye for a pass that makes him so brilliant in build-up play and dangerous to supply Bukayo Saka. When he's, if he can get forward, he provides brilliant passes, can really dictate the tempo of a game. But what he's added is that combativeness and that physical robustness, apparently, because he dealt with Luis Diaz really, really well, I thought. And you always know you're going to have a problem with Mo Salah in a game against Liverpool. And when I looked at the lineup, I thought, oh no, we've got a problem on the other side as well, because we've got Thomas Partey playing against Luis Diaz. And what did Luis Diaz do all game? Nothing. Partey had him. Partey dealt with him, and then Gakpo came on and he dealt with him as well. I thought he did brilliantly. And the only criticism I can level at Thomas Partey was his marking of Virgil van Dijk for the goal. That's the only thing I think he got wrong. Obviously a big error because it leads to a goal, but he was brilliant, playing out of position and dealing with it so well. It will be nice to have him back in midfield next game. I won't lie. I would like to see that right-hand side of the defence of Ben White and William Saliba return. But he's been fantastic in both positions. When we've asked him to play at right back, he's been great. And when he's played in the number 6 role, he's also been really, really positive there. And I mentioned Trossard earlier about his influence on the first half. I thought he was really good, passing the ball, switching the ball. Couple of really lovely passes, some dangerous moments in their third, but as well as that, again, he was very combative. His pressing has really impressed me today, really impressed me. I think before it felt, when we established that Trossard-Havertz partnership up front, it felt like Havertz was the guy and Trossard was sort of filling in gaps and taking chances. And I think that's one thing a lot of us as Arsenal fans say about him, right? We say, well, actually, he finishes chances, he contributes with goals and assists, but how is his general play? And I think today his general play might have actually been one of his better performances of the season. So well done to Thomas Partey, well done to Leandro Trossard. One thing I think is a little bit worrying, and worrying for an individual player, Zinchenko. And Lewis Skelly did great, but I was amazed to see him coming on. Amazed. Very brave to go and take the ball a number of times. Looked like he was directing play a little bit from the left-back position. I think he put in a tackle on Darwin Nunez at one point. Impressive cameo from him when Timber went off, so about 15-20 minutes he had. But that's got to sting for Zinchenko now. That's twice that we've seen Arteta go for Lewis Skelly. When we've lost our other left-back, we lost Calafiori, he went for Lewis Skelly. We lost Timber, he went for Lewis Skelly. Both times Zinchenko was on the bench. And you think one time, okay, maybe he wasn't as fit as we thought, and Lewis Skelly had the upper hand from a fitness point of view. But another week goes by, and another time that Zinchenko doesn't get off the bench when a left-back's injured, you've got to start to think that this is the end for Zinchenko. They have clearly put their eggs in the Miles Lewis-Skelly basket. And I'm pleased with that. I'm pleased to see us develop a young player. However, Zinchenko is on a lot of money, and with his injury record, he might be quite difficult to shift. And I wonder, are we creating a little bit of a problem for ourselves there? To go to Lewis-Skelly when you've got Mohamed Salah on the right wing is quite a big call, and it must show something about the fitness, the ability to stay fit, the training levels. It must show something. Worrying times for Alex Zinchenko. And we come to my closing thoughts. I guess, I think it's a fair result. 2-2. We were very, very good first half. We were unlucky with the injuries we got in the second half, and it really changed how we were able to play. And from that point, Liverpool did take advantage. We can't use that as an excuse. However, it is a mitigating factor. And Liverpool did take advantage. They scored a great second goal. The first goal was a well-worked set piece. I think they did enough for a point. And I think we probably didn't do enough in the second half in terms of offering threat to deserve a full victory. However, if you'd said to me, if you'd said to any of us as Arsenal fans, a point, given the context, given that we didn't think we were going to have Bukayo Saka, we didn't think we were going to have Timber, and we did lose Timber. We lost Gabriel, we lost Saliba. Our back four at the end was Thomas Partey, Ben White, Kivior, Lewis-Skelly. I can't believe that is a back four that we had to play in a Premier League game, especially one against Liverpool this year, considering the amount of defenders and the amount of, left backs we've collected, especially. Mikel Arteta loves buying a defender, and somehow we've ended up with, and this is no knock to any of them, a real ragtag back four, where you could argue none of them were playing in their positions. Partey playing at right back, usually a DM. Ben White's not played centre-back for 2 years. Kivior, I think a lot of people prefer him at left-back as an exterior player rather than an interior player. And Lewis-Skelly, ostensibly in the under-18s, has been a midfielder a lot of the time. Crazy position that we ended up in. So to be in that position without our captain, with Bukayo Saka a 50-50, without Ricardo Calafiori, without Tomiyasu, key players in the squad, and all that coming together, I think if you said at the start of the day, you can have a draw, I think we would have taken it. And I think it's an interesting point to just sit and reflect at this stage of the season. 9 games with 5 points adrift of Manchester City. And I think if you say that without any of the context, you'd be worried, right? We all would be without any of the context. If you told us that before the Wolves game at the start of the year, 5 points adrift of City with 9 games played, I think we'd all be going, oh no, that's really not very good at all. However, put that context in there. 3 red cards, probably 1.5 of them were deserved, but definitely not one of them. We've lost our captain. We've lost Bukayo Saka for a couple of games as well. We've got a defensive injury crisis. Oh, and by the way, you've played Man City away, Tottenham away, Villa away, and you've played Liverpool at home in those 9 games. You also had a tough game against Brighton and a lot of difficult Champions League nights, including away at Atalanta and PSG. I don't think many people, when you insert that context, can say that it's been a bad start. It's been a very difficult start, a very challenging start. And I think, we've got another tough run. We've got 4 away games on the spin now. I believe, if I'm getting it right, it's Preston away, Newcastle away, Inter Milan away, Chelsea away, before we're at home to Nottingham Forest on November the 23rd. So again, that's not going to be an easy run. We need to get some players back. Number one, we need to make sure we don't get any more red cards, no more injuries, and get some players fit, because we need to share those minutes. We need players like Raheem Sterling and Gabriel Jesus to step up. We saw a little bit from Nwaneri and a fair chunk from Lewis-Skelly today. We're going to need Arteta to trust those guys. Did a podcast about that during the week if you want to check it out. So yeah, we need all of the squad back. We need them ready. We need them raring to go. But yeah, I think that brings us to a close. It's a fair result overall. I'm pleased with the Arsenal performance, really pleased with it, given the context. I wish we could have done more in that second half, but I understand why It didn't happen. I think 2-2 with Liverpool, a title rival, is not a bad result. I would have loved us convert it into a victory, but we sit in an okay position right now, and I think the sooner Martin Ødegaard can come back, the better. The sooner we can see Gabriel and Saliba play together again, the better. And let's hope the injury to Gabriel and Jurrien Timber is not serious at all. That was the Arsenal 2, Liverpool 2 review pod. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow Arsenal Unfiltered on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm really trying to grow the podcast, so a follow would be really appreciated. It expands our community and it shows the podcast to more and more people. So yeah, click the follow button if you've enjoyed this episode and you enjoyed any of our other episodes. Like I mentioned, we did a short episode about the opportunities for Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly earlier in the week, so please check that out. I really enjoyed recording that one. And just a big thank you. Thank you for following. Thank you for listening. And I'll speak to you very, very soon.